I'm just, no, it was, yeah.
I'm still working on it being
Online.
I learned so much today watching stories
There's somebody
on
participating.
TV. It was all on
Scott and.
Pearl Harbor.
Oh, yeah.
We went up to Pearl Harbor.
You can move it out, wait a minute.
But I didn't, how much worse did it make?
No, recording.
Yeah, everybody had paid attention. And the next day, they hit the Philippines after Roosevelt, and everybody told. Where?
Yeah. Scott, can you hear us?
Are we ready?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you, sir.
We got it. Okay, we'll call it to order at 6:03. There's a reason that we're going ahead as quickly as we can. It'll come out in the wash. Okay. We'll take roll call. Renee?
Okay, Melissa Adamson.
Present.
Garrett Anderson. Carolyn Campbell.
Here.
Shayla Daigle. Charles Eldridge. Ellie Fleming.
Here.
Nancy Glissman.
Here.
Tricia Grant.
Here.
Scott Hennings. Scott Hennings. Taylor Johnson. Is she on?
No.
Jim McConaughey, Terry Moy.
Here.
Michelle Dimios.
Here.
Adam Wallen.
Here.
Randall Zalisky.
Here.
And
Mary Donner.
Mary Donna.
You can't have the meeting without, I am here
Swear.
in spirit. Okay, that's very good. Approval of the draft minutes.
So moved.
Perry has moved.
Second.
Vern Sisson has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Chairman's comments. It's Christmas time. It's been a year since we last met. And this time around, I wanted to be able to thank all of you for your continued support. So everybody's got a little something hung in the front. You can put it on a Christmas tree, you can put it on a doorknob. I put it all in the windows with command strips. They're just so much fun. And I also had the opportunity to think today, particularly, about what we've learned and how we've met. So the little sticker in front of you tells me my first impressions of you now. So I can tell you, Ellie, you are the flower child. You're the newbie. Carolyn, you are my mentor. Garrett, well, he can find out later. Michelle, yours is
Thorough.
I had it before. Nancy Glissman is sweet. Perry Moy is excited. He even said he was before he walked in the door today. Randy, you're happy, Polska?
And Polish too.
That's what I said. Yeah.
Polska.
Yes. And Pat, you are my old soul.
Thank you.
Keep me honest. Charlie, well, he's Santa. Everybody thinks so. And Mr. Wallen, you are my Pepsi man.
Your Pepsi dealer. Yep.
Bringing the Pepsi all the time. So those are my comments. Everybody here has done such a good job of being patient, we've all blended so that the generations, we all learn. We get it from you, you get it from us, and suddenly you have a better understanding altogether. And I think that's why this has been the success it has been this year. We're getting close to being finished. Not quite. Brandon will finish this up today and tell us all what's going to be happening, and then we're going to be done for today. So Brandon, if you would go ahead, please.
All
Or
right.
if there is any public comment? Nope. Okay.
All right, I'm gonna share a screen here so Scott can see what you all
see as well here.
Thank you.
All right, so today's conversation, I want to go over the preferred land use plan, where we landed with that. It's an evolution of, I think, pieces you've seen along the way. So again, shouldn't be any surprises. It's really kind of confirming this is where we've gotten with this, and we're ready to move on. We'll then talk about the revised key recommendations memo. All of this can be shared with you all kind of immediately following this meeting. But we have revised key recs. I'll walk through kind of what's changed since last time, mostly just some reorg of water resources infrastructure. So that piece is done. And then we want to talk briefly about timeline. So I don't know, this might be one of our shorter meetings, because we just kind of want to confirm where we've landed. It won't be, not going to last 3 hours.
I call it a listening session tonight.
There we go.
We can listen to what he has to say and save any of our comments for the end. By that time, we'll be so tired, we'll just say, let's go. Michelle,
Bring down.
Michelle will help us straight.
I'm going to apologize in advance. I have bronchitis right now, so if I'm coughing, it's not contagious.
You're sitting next to me.
I've been on antibiotics for a week and a half. We're good. But it's just I'm coughing.
Draw the line.
Yeah. I'm coughing, so I apologize as we're going through this presentation. So let me see if I can advance the slide here. Okay. So again, just to rehash, when we started this land use planning process, we put together a preliminary framework that kind of outlined all the constraints and the things that need to be taken into consideration. We went through a series of different land use scenarios. We revised that, had a working session with you all. We had a series of engagement workshops with municipal and township planning staff, as well as an online workshop with municipal mayors and managers. And so we tried to open the door and get as much feedback as we could on the kind of working draft land use plan. Got a few comments, nothing that was really a sea change. It was more just kind of slight modifications here and there. So we are delivering with this meeting the preferred land use plan as we see it. There's still room to make some, I think, modifications, but basically the map and the memo we're presenting you is the 99% version. So I think, oh, hey, we need to make this parcel red, or don't forget about this intersection over here for that retail center we talked about. Minor things like that I think will happen over the next couple of months, but overall this is the draft land use plan we're presenting. So again, as a reminder, the previous scenarios we walked through, business as usual was taking existing municipal and township land use plans that have been adopted that have maps and putting them all on the same page, literally. So that's now a resource for staff to use, I think, moving forward as well. But that kind of set the table. We use the SARE overlay as a way of kind of walking back some of the intensity of development that was proposed at the municipal and township level. And then in scenario 3, we kind of further right-size things based on what CMAP, the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, is projecting. Taylor, let me hear it. Looking at kind of projected population growth and household growth of the county. So those are the 3 scenarios. Basically what we're presenting as preferred land use plan is a revised version of scenario 3 that's kind of taken a harder look at some key areas and looked at kind of some infill opportunities in addition to what was previously presented. So let me walk through that now, if I can get this to the next slides. There we go. So as a reminder, coming out of the last meeting, we showed you kind of this map. So this is the first time we're seeing this, but basically using all those different constraints and the land use framework that's previously presented, the areas in orange were the areas that we thought could accommodate some kind of land use change if we wanted to. So areas outside of the orange, we're not touching in this land use plan. We're leaving kind of existing addition as existing addition here. So if it's open space or ag, it stays open space or ag. And then in this map, you can also see kind of a gray hatch coming across the whole page. We also use that SARE overlay and green infrastructure overlay as a way of trying to, again, balance how intense land uses were in select areas. Also took into account the population growth from CMAP. Again, the magic number, kind of the main test is CMAP was projecting about 27,000 additional households within unincorporated parts of McHenry County through 2050. So overall, the county is projected to grow by just shy of 68,000 households through 2050. 27 of that happening in unincorporated parts. So the bulk of the growth is still happening in incorporated municipalities. So with that as kind of the baseline for the preferred scenario, we really looked at kind of where there are opportunities to double down on growth along existing kind of edges of municipalities. So where is there growth already happening, where we can kind of show that contiguous growth happening within unincorporated parts of the county, recognizing that, long-term, ideally those areas are annexed and we have controlled growth with quality infrastructure serving those areas as development happens. The revised scenario, preferred land use plan, also looks at infill locations. So there's several incomplete subdivisions, several areas that have previously been platted. So we're showing those being filled in where it makes sense, where we know we have infrastructure or proximity to municipalities. We also looked at some key intersections and kind of commercial corridors to identify where we wanted to maybe see some additional retail growth, namely like the area around the new interchange of Route 23. The area immediately surrounding the interchange is not incorporated yet. It's not part of Marengo. So, but I think long-term, that's likely to happen. So we're showing growth around that interchange. And we also wanted to take into account the rural crossroads concept that's been discussed with this group and looking at where we can maybe accommodate some smaller scale local serving retail at some kind of key intersections throughout the county to better provide local access to commercial goods and services. So several kind of aspects of how we change the map. But at the end of the day, it doesn't look drastically different from scenario 3. There's some tweaks here and there. Again, to add some additional retail, to add some industrial areas around the interchange, to do that infill residential growth. So this is the map. Again, it looks very similar, I think, to what you would have seen in scenario 3. And then looking at kind of what does that mean? Well, overall, we're talking about changing about 11,000 acres for residential development purposes. Based on our different densities that we specified in the land use definitions, estate residential, low density, medium density, high, approximately 42,000 households could be accommodated within that acreage. We also need to factor in things like need for open space, roadways, things like that, so that number is probably a little high, but overall that's kind of the ballpark of what this land use plan could accommodate. So that's about 50% more than you technically need per CMAP, but it kind of provides that middle ground, I think, where we're not being overly conservative, but we're also not being as aggressive as the municipal plans were. If you recall, the municipalities, if we were to take the business as usual, it was something like 140,000 households. So this is much more kind of constrained compared to just taking existing municipal plans and adopting those kind of writ large. So again, we're meeting and not exceeding overall projections for growth. We really think this map kind of balances conservation with kind of the need for localized growth that municipalities are clearly wanting to see happen from an economic development standpoint. We're looking at a collective hit of about 8,400 acres to your ag and open space. So 4% reduction in your ag and open space total. And then even though it's 4%, it's not zero. It's a lot less aggressive than other scenarios. Scenario 2 looked at an additional 12,000 acres. Scenario 1, the business as usual, is more than 29,000 additional acres. So this again is kind of swinging back towards a bit more conservation, but it's not quite as conservative as that initial scenario 3 was that we presented to you all. And I think, as you recall, when we presented scenario 3, we thought, you know what, we've swung it pretty far in one direction. Now we need to kind of balance it a little bit more towards some growth. So that's what we did in this iteration. We also wanted to make sure we compared apples to apples and looked at the 2010 land use plan. So here's some numbers for you in terms of how the preferred land use plan or preferred LUPs we're showing in this table stacks up against the 2010 plan. The 2010 adopted land use plan was most similar to scenario 2, which was kind of middle of the road in terms of how aggressive it was for growth. So this plan isn't as aggressive in terms of overall long-term development as the currently adopted land use plan is. I think it really pulls back in certain areas and talks about really targeted growth in key areas. So looking at kind of collectively residential land use would make up 13% of the overall acreage in the county. For this plan, the previous plan was like 16%. So we've pulled back how much growth we're showing in the out county areas compared to the currently adopted 2010 land use plan. And then kind of last slide on this, again, just kind of compare things across the board. We're tacking out about 47,000 acres of residential overall. The initial scenario was more like 74,000, so we've trimmed that back quite a bit. And again, the collective hit to ag and open space is about 4% compared to the initial 17% for the business and user. Again, version of scenario 3 that's kind of trying to get balance. I think what we were hearing from municipalities about just the need for some growth and economic development in their proximity. But questions and concerns or thoughts?
I do have one. It's just confusing to me. In scenario 1, the percentage of loss was the least number of acres, but the largest number of percentage of loss. Why was that?
So that's ag and open space acreage that's left. So the lower the number, that means more acreage has been taken away compared to the 223,000 in the top line.
Okay,
That's what's shown as existing kind of baseline.
okay, okay,
So you want that number to be as close to that 223 as possible.
okay. Thank you.
I have a question about the distribution of estate, like between the different densities. So with the preferred land use plan, it's the same as scenario 3, except for there's more estate residential acreage in households. And we talked about last time trying to find more medium density residential, maybe low density residential opportunities from that scenario 3.
So scenario 3 has 350 acres of medium density, and this preferred land use we're showing 1,000. So that's about a 700 acre swing of additional medium density residential.
So I'm looking at the chart on page 4
The memo.
and then comparing that to the scenario 3 from the presentation for the municipal leaders. So maybe there's just a mistake in the chart.
On page 4?
Yeah.
That's new acreage.
Yeah, but it's the same as scenario 3 from the municipal. I don't think you have that chart in here anywhere. I was just looking at the
old.
presentation for the municipal leaders. And I remember we talked at the end of that meeting about wanting to do more medium density and low density residential as opposed to estate residential.
I can double check the memo. There might have been a mistake in what was pasted in, but these numbers collectively are accurate. So if you look at this table, which I think is also on the final page before the land use definitions, you can see scenario 3, if you look at medium density, that third column over versus the far right column for land use, it's an additional 700 acres more, just about, of medium density. And then some additional low density and fewer estate residential acres.
Okay, right, that's what I would have wanted.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll make a note to double check the memo and we can send that out to
Okay,
you.
cool.
Yes, but I just want to re-emphasize again that having low density is extremely important for agricultural preservation and protection.
Mhm.
Because medium density and high density commercial, all of those things have huge impacts on the movement of machinery, hay racks, stock trailers, everything that's used by subcontractors and by farmers and also by horsemen and cattlemen.
So we are showing additional estate residential. We are showing additional low density residential. Those are actually the biggest contributors to the residential development overall. And I would say if you look at the map in terms of how they're distributed, you're going to see that all the more intense residential uses are all close against municipal boundaries, so we're trying to avoid that conflict as much as possible.
Exactly, and I just want to agree with you on
Great.
that.
Yeah.
Great.
All of those high density or medium density, or if you're thinking in terms of apartments, Section 8, all of that sort of thing will have to be within the municipality, not dragging out into the rural areas. And the estate residential with the 3 to 5 acre zoning can accommodate very, very good small, I'll just call them farmettes. That's who you're seeing, that's your farmer's market too. And
So,
we're not, I don't fall into that category, we have
Sure.
sheep and cattle and things, so.
So we're showing, yeah, the state residential, for the most part, is all gonna be filling in areas that are already kind of built out that way. We're not showing new expansion of that. It's more like, hey, you've got 3 estates and a pocket here, let's fill that in, because you can't really farm it consistently anymore anyway. So, we're accommodating that compact growth to avoid that conflict.
Keep in mind though, all the time, keep in mind that whenever you have any kind of driving of any kind, and who knows what's gonna be going on here lately with all of the electric cars and all this stuff. Who knows what's gonna be going on and how much driving there's gonna be or any of this other stuff. So what we want to do though is try to do everything we can to keep these people off of the local roads, for one thing. One of the things that I still can't figure out is why Route 47, which was not paid for incidentally by, the county never said, oh, widen Route 47. No, Route 47 is paid for by the federal government. The state of Illinois has not had any IDOT is what I'm talking about.
Pat, we need to state,
Anyway, yes, all of that though, 120 is gonna have to take on more traffic.
Mhm.
And so I just mentioned that.
Yeah, and so one of the things we're working, because KLA, transportation consultant on the team, obviously, Scott's on the call, so he knows what's going on in the transportation master plan. We're coordinating kind of with that group to make sure, they've got a copy of this map, they can see where maybe some of the pinch points are, to see if there's any potential to influence transportation planning over the long term.
Well, because the first thing they do is, whatever they put in fast food things, they forget all about the farm people who live along the roads. And out goes all of the garbage all along the roads. And who do they think is supposed to pick that up? The good ferry? No. That has to all be done by the local people.
Pat,
And,
we need to keep going.
and so we're gonna keep going.
I'm sorry. I mean, it is all
this is
important.
something
I think it's something that Scott would be able to handle, and we can take care of that. We still have 3 meetings left. So that's why I want to get through this so we know where we are right now. Take a little break until January, and then we'll take time to talk with Scott. Are you listening, Scott? No, he's not listening. But we'll make sure.
Yes, I am.
Heard all that.
You gotta give a second to unmute.
Punch that button. Make it all
You
unmute.
just woke up.
And we can, not with his babies. No. They're active, in different ways. Let's just say that we'll have Scott be able to talk with you specifically about that. But in the meantime, we gotta worry about the land use, and the highway department will worry about the roads, and he can answer your questions on that.
Well, I hope he understands the two of them go together.
Yes, he does. That's why we are adopting a lot of what he has for our transportation section. When we get there, yay, we'll go hit into it. But I thank you for your comments.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
It would be interesting anyway, I'm sure you have this somewhere, but like on the land use distribution, I've been pulling it up on my thing from the other. It would be interesting to see, like when we talk about we're comparing it to scenario 1, 2, and 3, but having another column that shows what it is from existing.
Okay.
And I don't know if we'd have to need to do that for the plan itself, that's, I don't care either way, whatever everybody decides, but just kind of be interesting to see where we are right now and what that means.
Yeah, we try to do that at least for the existing ag and open space, because we knew that was priority.
Right, right, and then it doesn't have, or anything, can we do it offline, even if that's not anything serious, I was just curious.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Thank you, Brandon.
Yeah. Anything else in the land use? Otherwise, we'll move on to the key recs. All righty. Let me stop sharing and I can reshare. All right.
Oh, TJ's on. Too.
TG, have a question? You're just saying hi.
Hi.
All right.
Hi, TJ.
Excuse me. All right, so we have a revised key rec memo for you all to digest. This is all 39 pages of it. Tonight I just wanted to focus on a couple of things to kind of alert you to what's changed. The main area of change is going to be in the open space and agriculture piece. It's not loading. Let me try again.
Did you say we'll be receiving this 39 pages after the meeting? Okay. I'm just making sure.
I'll just pull up these pieces individually. That'd be easier. Water resources. This has probably undergone the most change from our last conversation. Again, kind of the direction from the group was there's 13 objectives or 12 objectives in this section. It doesn't quite match the flow of the other ones. It's getting a little bit into the weeds and some stuff. So we worked with Geosyntec to really take another look at how to organize this section. So the revised version has 4 objectives instead of 12. And what we've done is basically take things that are overlapping and kind of generally within the same kind of topic or bucket for planning and kind of made them kind of create one section. So there's an objective as it relates to water supply, and that's the first and foremost in the outline. So we know that's the kind of biggest key issue for this group, and what's been part of our discussion is making sure we have water and groundwater resources to actually make sure you can develop in the county. And then the 3 recommendations relate to the objectives that were previously presented. So we basically kind of reorganized this so water supply gets championed up front in the chapter, and then all the content you saw previously isn't going away. Those pages, those 12 objectives are basically being used as content in the plan now instead. So slightly different level of detail, but all the content you saw previously will be in what you get at the end of the day. Same thing. Objective 2, increase opportunities to collaborate with McHenry County communities on key water resources. We had 3 or 4 objectives all related to coordinating with municipalities, educating municipalities, sharing infrastructure. So that's all been collapsed into one bigger bucket about, how do we advance kind of regional goals? Is it doing things like identifying opportunities to share water and sewer, looking at kind of providing an infiltration ordinance in conjunction with municipalities, the Salt Smart Collaborative. The Salt Smart thing was a great example of, that was a lot of detail for goals and objectives memo that really, that's an action that has already been written basically. We don't need to get into that kind of detail for the comprehensive plan. So all that has been combined into an objective around the idea of collaboration. Third objective is work to address overarching water quality issues in McHenry County. So the bucket is water quality, and so it's about looking at how we make sure surface water, groundwater resources are well cared for from a water quality standpoint. Looking at surface water protection zones, looking at watershed management, basically. So that was, again, part of the discussion we had last month, the idea of coordinating at the watershed level. So all the content previously discussed will be in the final plan, but it's just going to be at a different level of detail to, I think, hopefully tell a better story here. And then the 4th objective, improve stormwater management approaches in McHenry County. So water supply, coordination, water quality, and then stormwater management are the 4 objectives in this revised component. I think collectively, with those 4 objectives is going to tell a much clearer story in the plan. We'll still get to all the recommendations that were previously discussed, but they'll be kind of organized under those 4 umbrellas rather than spread across 12 or 13 different things. So that's the biggest shift, I think, in what you'll see in the memo you're able to review after this meeting.
I like it.
Good. It was some battling with the engineers, but I got them there. And then the only other, excuse me, infrastructure, it was just wording changes based on our discussion about solar. So nothing like, no big changes there, it's more just wording. Same thing with agriculture. So you'll see the revisions. They're pretty minor. It's really kind of wordsmithing some things and adding a couple supporting recommendations. The only other reorg we did was in green infrastructure. That one went from, I think it's 8 down to 6 objectives. So it's still, again, trying to tell a more succinct story. Objective 1, conserving sensitive natural areas and open space. That one's the same. Improved stewardship for natural areas. That one was combined with another one kind of around coordinating with around education and outreach. So that's been collapsed. Objective 3, update the green infrastructure plan. And then objective 4, conservation development principles. Objective 5, greenway and trail connections. And objective 6 is the oak woodlands. So we trimmed this one from 8 down to 6. Just a little bit of reorganization there again to try to capture the same thing. Municipal coordination was in 2 or 3 different spots, so we just put that in one. And that was probably the biggest change there. And then per this group's discussion, the oak woodlands piece gets a pretty sizable amount of content to it because it's such a unique issue for the county. So as you all know, that one's been pretty well fleshed out in terms of the level of detail it has based on the conversations that has been having. So those are kind of the 4 sections that had any kind of change to them. Everything else is the same from the previous draft. And so that's the memo you'll get. If you want to look at kind of maybe what's been tweaked, it's just those 4 pieces.
Okay.
Any questions on the QREC memo? Because that basically, just in terms of next steps, we've been coordinating with the team on the QREC memo, and they're in the process. Each team member, House of being included, is in the process of doing really detailed outlines of each chapter, and we're moving into actually fleshing out and creating chapter content as we speak here. So that started a couple weeks ago. We have another team meeting. I'm meeting with each of the sub-consultants, each of them to go over their outlines next week to confirm things and confirm direction. But essentially what you'll end up getting out of this QREC memo is for every objective, you're going to have a kind of multi-page section in the plan. You'll have the introduction, which is basically the objectives as they've been written, that supporting content. You'll have some existing additions data that we've pulled in from the previous report you've seen to kind of substantiate and say, hey, this is why this is an issue, this is why we care about it. And then for every single bulleted recommendation, there'll be 1 or 2 paragraphs of narrative kind of supporting and explaining what that recommendation means. If we're using any planeries in this recommendation, it's going to get unpacked there. So if we use a phrase like smart growth, we're going to define what that means and help explain the recommendation. So each recommendation ends up being, a page basically in the plan. So that's what we're working through now is kind of with each sub-consultant, what are the key recommendations, I guess details we want to include, what are the key maps. Every single chapter is going to have 1 main map figure. We'll also have some supporting, we call them vignette maps, so about quarter size page. So if there's like a single layer you want to talk about, like here's a map that just shows the Sarah overlay. That's a very simple map, doesn't need to be a full scale map. And then we're bringing in infographics and charts and tables and things like that as well to kind of support everything. So that's what we're working on now to flesh this out and create the plan document. But I guess for basically each section of the QREC memo, expect a multi-page chapter.
So for those of us of an age, you also supply magnifying glasses so we can see what's on those maps?
The maps, I mean, so right now our thought is to keep the 11 by 17 format that was
Okay.
the previous
Okay.
effort. I
Sure.
think that'll make it legible. It'll be a full page map, basically.
We would wait a couple of years.
We have, I mean, at least for like the land use map, for example, I think it might make sense to do quadrants too. So you've got the full page and then we've got northeast, southeast, sections that you can kind of see at a
Very good.
larger scale. So when we package the full document, I think that's what we'll do, at least for the land use plan itself. The other ones will be more simple, you don't need as much magnifying.
We may understand all of this, but there are going to be a lot of people looking at it. We want to make sure that they can understand it fairly easily. Otherwise, they'll all have our telephone numbers.
Yeah, we're gonna put them in the acknowledgements page, right? Your cell, yeah.
No, I'm kidding, of course.
So that's what we're working on. I mean, and the idea is to meet with this group in January to start going through that kind of working draft content. So the first chapters being prioritized are the first 4 in the outline. So the housing and economic development sections, the House of Ian is leading, and then Solutions in the Land is working on agriculture, and Kayla is working on transportation. So when we meet with you guys in January, the goal is to have working content so you can say, all right, here's the narrative that goes with this chapter, here's the key maps, your key graphics, these are the components that we're putting together.
And so we'll get that fairly early on so that we have time to look it over and do our matching.
So that's, yeah, we have to make progress and share.
Okay.
And then we'll do that same thing in February for the other chapters. As long as everything's moving along well, that's January and February, and then March would be complete document. So we've taken all the pieces that we've showed you in the previous couple months and put them together in a cover-to-cover PDF polished document for you guys to look at.
Do we have the dates?
Oh, Renee, you have the dates, January 27th, February 40th,
27th is out.
25th is our next meeting, right? It's on the agenda.
25th?
25th.
Okay.
Oh.
I will not be there. I'll let you.
That'll at least be the first one.
It'll be February 27th.
Yeah, the 25th, and then what do
Yeah.
you think of the 22nd or the 29th?
And then March 28th.
Yes.
So all that's to say, beginning of the year, spring, we're in the home stretch and getting this adopted by mid-year. So,
So, yeah, it's January 25th, February 22nd, and March 28th.
Excellent.
Chairman, as just a matter of scheduling, I'm going to be traveling for spring break on the 28th of March. That may be the case for others, so we may want to look at that.
I'm sure that you will be more than happy to give us some of your comments to be able to
Sure.
use them during that meeting. Same thing with Ellie, if you've got it, you put it
Yeah.
together, and if you can't make it, that happens. That's why we're all here tonight. And don't forget, once we've got everything finished in March, it still has to go to PE&D for them to review it, and then it has to go to the county. So if that's March, April, May, I'm hoping that we can get it done by then because we're running into all kinds of other things that are happening in 2024. And we don't want, we want this to go smoothly.
What else is happening? I said, what else is happening in 2024? Wink, wink.
Nod, nod, whack, whack.
The elections.
Yeah.
They tell me.
Local and
Yes.
state.
Yeah, that would make sense.
So we don't want to have anything messing with that, so we want to have that all finished and taken care of so that there is less said. We just want to have a
And
really
the-
smooth.
And those that
very
vote
good-
on
and I
it will be
think
familiar with the plan
truly-
because they've been party to it as
I
it's
think
run.
we're
Yeah.
in really good shape. This looks like it's going to be something that we would want people to see, not something that we've been shoving or hurrying or doing anything else, but now we just kind of have to sit down and. Yes. So, are you finished then?
That's all I got. This was kind of
Ladies and
the.
gentlemen, you haven't seen this in a year, and I've kept you long.
I have a quick question. Just yesterday, got because I'm a data nerd, I got my email from the US Census that they finally dropped the American Community Survey data for 2022.
Okay.
So is there any plan to double check against any of the assumptions and just kind of see if that new ACS data tweaks anything? I was just looking at population here. It looks like in general, Huntley, which has been leading our county, actually got a negative 88 people on this most recent one. Yeah, it's actually.
What's the margin of error though?
Down just a hair. McHenry and Woodstock are doing well. Crystal Lake and Lake in the Hills are fairly flat. Hebron and Harvard and Marengo are all up significantly, like in the 3 to 6% range.
Nice.
So, yeah,
Small towns are up, big towns are steady, you know,
yeah, I mean,
the biggest ones are down.
we can definitely double check. I mean, there's
Always.
the baseline data.
Yeah, it's just 1 year data though, so it's just an estimate, so.
I think the baseline data that goes in like the existing conditions component of whatever we end up pulling together, we can update to have more recent data. The numbers you just rattled off sounds like we're still.
You know, the most important ones are like, because of inflation and how rampant it's been, you know, looking at annual household incomes, things like that. I don't know if there's any assumptions in the plan that are based on that kind of data. But no, I looked at Woodstock today and it went from 77 all the way up to like 83. So it was a pretty big jump.
Yeah.
I haven't looked at the rest of the communities yet, but.
They can bring some dice to the next meeting.
Yeah.
And you can roll those and see what's gonna
See where the data lands,
Or
yeah.
that behind the 8-ball thing that you used to have.
Yeah.
That you'd shake it and turn it around, it's gonna do just as well as anything else is these days. You can't tell from days.
Well, we can definitely, on the House Levine side, I mean, for the housing section, we can definitely look at things like the cost burden rate that we had looked at for 2021. We can see if that needs to be reviewed with that. I didn't have that alert in my email though, so thank you for that. So
It's just, you know, census email.
I just have to learn the new jargon. It dropped today.
Well, it's just
Went to a
new data.
president.
They're constantly releasing
Things I
different
have
data sets.
Bless you. Okay,
That still
so
plays.
if you are, it's down to member comments. Does anybody have anything to bring to this meeting? This Christmas meeting? This Christmas Carol Day?
A song?
Oh, no, I couldn't do that. I do have Trans-Siberian Orchestra, we could listen to something till 8 o'clock or 7:30.
you could give the gift of time.
On a personal, professional level for the city of Woodstock, welcome to Woodstock during Christmas time. If you haven't been on the square yet this Christmas season, the lights are all up and it looks lovely. And drive through on your way out because it's festive and lovely right now.
Garrett, what did your little sticker say?
Full of information.
See?
You'll take it.
You know, this is like, oh my God, you know, put it over in my head. And just so that you know, I did that all today by memory and I could remember.
I just kind of read
I'm
full of
doing
it.
a lot of work. I don't remember what I ate for breakfast. Okay, so if nobody has anything, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Joan Nuit. For the Vine Oxton. Merry Christmas in sign language.
Bring our little things.
It's, oh, and yes, each one of you get one.
Thank
Do you need a motion?
Yes, thank you.
Unless I'm already standing.
Do you need a motion?
There were
No,
like
we don't.
No? All right.
Meeting's over.
All right.
Okay, well,